Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. I'm here in the media studio with you, but also I'm with you via live webcast. This has been a milestone year for the Office of the Ombudsman. Almost 40 years after the first Ombudsman began calling for oversight of the broader public sector, I'm happy to report that we will begin taking complaints about school boards as of September 1st, and will be coming to universities and municipalities near you as of New Year's Day. I know there will be a learning curve for everyone involved as we take oversight of more than 500 additional public bodies. Today's report is an ideal opportunity to demonstrate how we work and the years of experience we bring to the table. Je sais bien qu'il y aura un temps d'apprentissage pour tous les gens touchés par ces changements, qui va conduire à assumer la surveillance de plus de 500 organismes publics supplémentaires. Le rapport d'aujourd'hui constitue une excellente occasion de présenter notre processus de travail, les années d'expérience que nous avons comme atout. We have worked with municipalities to bolster transparency and accountability at the local level since 2008, through our investigations of closed meetings. We've always helped college students and staff with their issues, because they were part of our mandate since 1975, but also including hundreds who were left in the lurch by the closure of the Everest College this past year, and we will help those at universities the same way. As for school boards, we will apply lessons learned in our work with boards that were taken over by provincial supervisors in the past, giving us, incidentally, oversight of those bodies. For anyone who has questions about how we work or what we will do in these areas, this report offers a wealth of answers. Simply put, my office is there when existing mechanisms fail. We resolve issues whenever possible and use our investigative power to fix systemic problems when necessary. We will encourage and bolster local accountability officers such as ombudsmen and integrity commissioners. But if those avenues hit a dead end, my office will be there as a last resort. You will find examples in this report of all the different ways we handle individual cases, systemic issues, and complaint trends that we raise proactively with the government by nipping them in the bud. This year also marks our 40th anniversary and 10 years since I became Ombudsman, so we've taken the opportunity to review how far we've come. In the past 10 years, our office has handled 193,038 cases and conducted 35 systemic investigations. The government has accepted almost all of our recommendations arising from those investigations, and we continue to follow up on them. Oversight work, and it is enhancing democracy in Ontario. For example, 10 years after our first investigation, which revealed the parents of children with special needs were being forced to turn their children to the Children's Aid Society to get the care they need, we had 6 similar cases where we had to step in and point out that this should not be happening. Our other big investigation from 2005 was also in the news when it was reported that the newborn screening program was having problems with delay. We looked into it, and we're now monitoring the program's efforts to make sure that no precious time is lost in testing babies' blood samples. Of course, this year will also mark the completion of our largest investigation yet into the billing and customer service disaster at Hydro One. Even though it has been removed from our jurisdiction, Hydro One has 4 more months to report back to us on the 65 recommendations it accepted. We also reported last year on problems with unlicensed daycare, and the government accepted all of our 113 recommendations for better protection of children in unlicensed daycare, and they did so the day of the publication of our report. Aside from these larger investigations, our staff also break through bureaucratic roadblocks that affect many lives every day. For example, by helping one woman get funding for a drug to treat a recurrence of breast cancer, they also prompted a change that will benefit another 100 women in similar circumstances in the next 3 years. Our frontline staff and investigators work like translators in a game of broken telephone. When communications break down between various government and ministry-funded agencies, we step in and we help them. We also help thousands of Ontarians with the alphabet soup of government organization like ODSP, OPGT, FRO, and DSO. We are there for the vulnerable, from adults with developmental disabilities to sick inmates who are wrongly stuck in segregation. Depuis 2005, notre bureau s'est réorganisé et a rebondi à la suite d'une menace d'élimination. Depuis 2010, le nombre de plaintes que nous avons reçues a augmenté de 86%. Une fois que nous assumerons la surveillance des municipalités, des universités et des conseils scolaires, 548 autres organismes viendront s'ajouter à plus de 500 organismes provinciaux relevant déjà de notre champ de compétences. Comme ce rapport le montre, nous sommes bien placés pour relever ce défi. Since 2005, our office has reorganized and rebounded from the threat of elimination. We reinvented ourselves. Innovate or perish. Since 2010, the volume of complaints we receive has increased 86%. When we take on oversight of municipalities, universities, and school boards, we will add another 548 new organizations to the more than 500 provincial bodies we now oversee. As this report demonstrates, we are well positioned to take on this challenge, and I'm happy to take your questions.
Family Responsibility Office, it seems to be a regular feature of your report. The examples are sort of similar every time. The employees don't seem to know what they're dealing with. They don't seem to know the laws they're dealing with. The computer still seems to be an issue. People leave the province, they're getting away. What can be done in the Family Responsibility Office? And you yourself, how many times have you reported on this and not seen the actions you were called for?
You know, every year you're correct that we report on the problems of the Family Responsibility Officer. It continues to be an ongoing concern. We work with them on individual cases to help them out, batches of cases. There's a new wrinkle this year, and we raised it actually last year, but it still is a problem they're struggling with, is that when a recipient of family or spousal support receives Family Responsibility Office funding, at the same time as receiving social assistance, FRO assigns the amount that they would pay to the recipient to the social assistance programs in order to take into account the global number. Now, what we see in Ontario is that there are instances where citizens get off social assistance, but FRO doesn't quit the assignments. So last year we reported that $845,000, and this is FRO money. These are people with families and children that should be getting that money, didn't get that money. And again, this year we're looking at 274 missed assignments totaling $214,000. Improved, but still over $200,000 not going to a needy parent is problematic. And so we keep a very close eye on FRO. We get good cooperation, but it's still a work in progress, unfortunately.
Mr. Moran, your report notes issues with the new Toronto Superjail, lots of complaints there, with inmate violence not being investigated. You find police complaints of insensitivity to people with mental health crisis. Are you concerned about how seriously the justice system takes the people in its care?
Oh, absolutely. The use of, or I should say misuse of segregation in Ontario is of great concern to us. Our complaints about segregation rose 54% in the last year. That's a huge jump. The Toronto South Detention Centre is progressing, a little slow to our assessment, but at least they're progressing in fixing the problem. But the issue of segregation, when we looked into it, we looked into the file of a particular complainant. You have to remember that by legislation, when someone's in segregation, there are various mandated periods of reviews, and after 30 days, there has to be a report back to the ministry. So we looked into the file of one of the complainants, and it turned out that the days he was marked in detention and segregation, he had been released. And so it came to our attention that the detention center had cooked the books, realizing after the fact that, oh, we didn't do the reviews we were supposed to do. And that's a great concern because the cover-up is worse than the crime. You can imagine how it feels to be 23 hours in segregation a day. The Toronto South Detention Centre opened in January 2014, and the media were taken on a tour of their spiffy new infirmary and state-of-the-art infirmary, except that there was nobody to operate the infirmary. And so the segregation became an alternative to going to the infirmary. And so you have people coming back with operations that needed medication, but instead they were simply thrown in segregation. So the misuse of segregation is of huge concern. We are monitoring and working very closely with the ministry involved, ensuring that they are dealing with the issues. And if need be, we will be calling a systemic investigation on that particular issue.
Mr. Moran, most jails don't have infirmaries, and segregation is most often what is used as an infirmary. Toronto South is a huge exception to this, and as is Maplehurst. So what do you say to all of the inmates that are in some of the 24 other institutions?
Well, my understanding is that they do have access to other care to take care of that, but segregation for patients who come back from operations who suffer from mental illness is not the solution.
Mr. Moran, in the past, you've been very critical of the SIU. I wonder if I can get your comments on some of the, we've seen some demonstrations from the group Black Lives Matter. We've seen the criticism of carding and those kinds of things. Could I get your comment on, what you take from that?
You must have spied on my cheat sheet. I didn't want to talk about that, in fact. There's three things I have to say about the police, three issues that concern me. First of all, de-escalation. We have a report that we launched right after the Yatim shooting some time ago on de-escalation. We see instances of the de-escalation like the recent Andrew Loku case, and I ask myself, can we not do better? Can the province not do better? Because the province has the ability, through training and through its ability to issue directives to police services, to improve how the police respond to situations and de-escalate those situations. That'll be the subject of our next SORT publication report. The investigation is complete, so you can expect a report back within the next month or so on that. But I do have concerns. Every time I see it in the media, the first thing that pops in my head is, can we not do the job better? Do we need to wait for groups to organize in society and coroner's inquests to report back? I mean, these are not perfect solutions. We know by now that we need to act on this, and we will be making some pretty solid recommendations to the government, and we're hopeful that we will see an implementation plan, because I think the issue has been studied to death. Secondly, about the SIU, we've conducted 2 investigations into the SIU. And I remain concerned about the level of cooperation that the SIU receives during investigations. I'm happy to see that the SIU director has called out recently the Peel Regional Police on the Carby case for removing a knife from the scene before they were allowed to investigate. So you have a knife allegedly used by the person who was shot on the scene as an issue of continuity. There's all types of evidentiary issues. A sergeant removes it from the scene. Very problematic. The SIU's been around for 25 years. Any police officer who thinks that removing evidence from the scene is okay needs to be retrained or shouldn't be in his job. The SIU director properly called out the Peel Police, and the Peel Police said they were conducting an administrative investigation and reporting back to the board within 30 days. The board may make the report public. What are the problems with that approach? Well, the Peel Police chief was quoted as saying that it was seized, and this is a quote reported in the newspaper, the knife was seized to preserve evidence and be placed in a brown bag for delivery to the SIU as per procedure. So here's the chief of police justifying already the actions of a police officer while she says he's under investigation to see whether it was right. So what's the point of an investigation if that officer's already been cleared by the police chief? And beyond that, we haven't heard anything from the police. And the police know very well. I mean, the two of us, let's take a walk and find the scene of a shooting that the police are investigating and cross the yellow line around the evidence and pick up one of the weapons used. And you'll be hauled into jail very fast and charged with obstruct. And so I think that going forward, the SIU director may well decide to charge police officers with obstruct if they do interfere and tamper with the evidence at the scene. And otherwise, we're back to what we can do. And will we need a third SIU investigation to look at those issues? I've always found that police issues are the hardest to move the government on because of the very strong lobby of the police unions. But hopefully, these things can be dealt with while they're exposed. Now, the third news I have about the police that I want to report back to you is actually good news. The Ontario Provincial Police has done incredible progress in dealing with operational stress injury. And you'll recall when we released our report, there was some pushback from the commissioner and high ranks who seemed to be oblivious to PTSD or operational stress injury. But what we've seen since then is a real acclimatization by the OPP. We've seen fantastic progress in dealing with it, a shift in culture. There's been numerous initiatives, including creating an OPP wellness unit. And I'm very much encouraged by that. And I think at the end of the day, the OPP may well be one of the best police services in being sensitive to the needs of frontline officers.
Where do you stand on carding? I can't remember if this is something maybe you've already commented on this, but I'm just wondering what your...
I've always thought that carding is an illegal measure. I think it's wrong. I think it took a long time for the Toronto Police Service Board to get their mind around it, but they came to the right decision. And I think that carding is simply a microcosm of what happened in the G20, where citizens who are not suspected of any crime whatsoever are stopped and asked for information, and they're detained momentarily. And I don't see how that can be justified. And the whatever benefit the police get out of it is outweighed by the breach of individual liberty involved in carding.
You talked in the report briefly about the SIU and how you think that there could be more legislative changes to strengthen it. What specifically are you looking for? Like is this the same thing that Ian Scott had been advocating for in becoming an independent office, the legislature? Or what is it?
No, I think there should be an offense for police who don't cooperate with the SIU. Simple as that. Should be an offense that's prosecutable where the charge is laid by the SIU. So that would get the police's attention. They'd think twice before picking up primary evidence from the scene, tampering with the scene, to use the words of the SIU director. Right now, there's no consequence. So, there's a shooting. You get all types of curious police officers who show up that don't necessarily have a business there. One crosses. You have to remember, the scene of a shooting is not a police scene. It's an SIU scene. They have no business there except for preserving it. If you want to preserve a knife at the scene, the simple solution is you post an officer beside the knife and you say, nobody touch the knife till the SIU arrives. You don't pick up the knife, put your prints in it. So I think there should be consequence for, right now the statute says, everyone shall cooperate fully with the SIU. So it's a wish. It's not an obligation that's backed up with a sanction.
Mr. Moran, this may be your last report. You talk in we don't know. You talk in the report about most of your complaints are focused in on certain bureaucracies that remain either uncaring, unwilling to change, reluctant. How important is it, or do you think it's important? Because you have been criticized for being very aggressive in your pursuit. Why have you been so aggressive, and do you think bureaucracies have been responding to that?
Well, I sure hope it's not my last report, first thing. Secondly, an invisible ombudsman is an ineffective ombudsman. I mean, everybody, I don't blame the government for being a little irritated with me at times, but that's my job. And, I like to believe that we've done a lot of good over the last 10 years for the citizens of Ontario. I mean, one of the issues that we've raised in 2005, and we continue to be on the alert for, is rulitis, the application of rules at the expense of common sense. And we see this in the area of health and drug benefits, where the intractability and rigidity of the government continues to pop its head. Now, I understand that matters of health are emotional matters. People are suffering. The government has to be consistent and uniform in the application of the rules. But that doesn't mean you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You have to be fair and considerate. And there's two examples that pop in my head in reviewing our work. And one is the Northern Health Travel Grant, where last year we found that a woman who had to drive to Sudbury was only 193 kilometers away as opposed to 200 kilometers. So she was 7 kilometers short of obtaining the Northern Health Travel Grant. And so automatically cut off. And that concerned us because, you should look at the nature of the illness, aggravating factors. Is there family that can help out? Is the person alone? There shouldn't be a sort of a black and white cutoff. And through our work with the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, we're now in a situation where we were able to convince them to put together the Northern Health Travel Grant Appeals Committee to provide some kind of a review of these rigid, capricious, arbitrary decisions. The second, and I mentioned it briefly in my opening, the second example that is a great example of rulitis we found in the last year is a woman who was suffering the third bout of HER2-positive breast cancer and was denied the drug Kadcyla because the government only said, well, we should only approve 2 rounds of it. But they disapproved the funding, although her oncologist recommended it, prescribed it, and even though scientific studies said that it was very effective in 3rd or 4 bouts of HER2-positive breast cancer. The government agreed to cover it until 2017. So that's a huge help for the 100 estimated women who will develop 3rd and 4th bouts of HER2-positive breast cancer. So those are kinds of cases that sure, the ombudsman can be the horse fly and nag at government and irritate the powers that be. But in the end, as I mentioned in my opening, we are there to strengthen democracy and government and not make it any weaker.
That's not this point, though. I mean, do you think sometimes you go a little bit too far? Like, I remember about a month ago, you were retweeting people who were saying that, Ontario has become a banana republic and Kathleen Wynne is as corrupt as FIFA and that sort of thing. I mean, do you think that's appropriate?
No, I think that though those tweets happen erroneously, listen, the part of the office is to use moral suasion. The moral suasion means you're there to exercise that voice using, as if it's media and social media. That's the only power we have, the power to communicate. I communicate to you today, you'll communicate through your media outlets. And it's important to be very persuasive and articulate in doing that. And what you pointed out is not common stream for the work we do.
So you
Monsieur
said
Morin.
you inadvertently retweeted those people, or
Well,
something?
those things are happening fast that night, and Twitter. The more you're on Twitter, the more it's like a highway. The more you can have fender benders, and I'm just happy that we've seen other examples of people make mistakes on Twitter. I mean, the Pope's infallible apparently, and he once promised Twitter followers that he would, if you followed him, he would cut your time in segregation. So he had to eat his words on that. So we all make mistakes, and it's water under the bridge at this stage.
Read your words?
Have you been interviewed yet for
Pardon
your, I know you're reapplying for the job. Have you had your interview yet? How's
Yeah.
all that going?
As you know, I've been interimly reappointed till September 14th. You know that I've applied for the job, and beyond that, out of deference and respect for the Ombudsman Selection Committee, struck by the Legislative Assembly of Ontario, I have absolutely no comments on that process.
Do you regret some of the things that you put on Twitter?
Yeah, there are some mistakes that we've had along the way. They've been learning mistakes. You learn and you move on.
Do you regret asking your followers to advocate?
No, I'm not
for-
going to. I'm not going to get into that. That's water under the bridge. And as I'll tell you, we learn about Twitter, and we learn about mistakes, and we move forward. The important thing is to recognize that these mistakes do happen.
Were you tweeting drunk by chance?
Allez, oui, en français.
Mention de plusieurs plaintes dans le domaine justement des municipalités, des universités. Vous allez avoir seulement la juridiction dans quelques mois. À ce moment-là, est-ce que vous allez pouvoir revenir sur certains des dossiers, je pense entre autres à Brampton, ou est-ce que vous allez devoir faire table rase? Et si c'est le cas, pourquoi alors mentionner toutes ces plaintes-là?
Oui, écoutez, du point de vue de notre nouveau champ de compétences, il n'y a pas de limite dans la loi qui nous empêcherait d'aller rétroactivement sur des cas qui ont précédé la mise en vigueur du projet de loi 8. Mais en tant que gestionnaire du bureau, en tant qu'ombudsman, on va le faire avec grande prudence. Il faudrait que les problèmes qui viennent à notre attention soient quand même des problèmes qui sont contemporains et pertinents du jour. Donc, c'est un ancien problème. Écoutez, il y a 10 ans, j'ai eu une injustice qui s'est produite. Écoutez, on aimerait avoir une enquête. Si ce n'est pas pertinent en 2015 ou 2016, on n'ira pas là. Dans le cas de Brampton, c'est un cas qu'on va regarder très attentivement. Mais je ne peux pas vous dire quel cas qu'on va accepter, quel cas qu'on n'acceptera pas. Tout simplement qu'il va falloir exercer beaucoup de diligence dans les cas qu'on va choisir, parce qu'on n'a pas des ressources illimitées. So the question in French was, are you precluded from looking at historical issues prior to the Bill 8's coming into effect in the various new field of jurisdiction? And the answer is that no, we're not precluded, but we will need to be very careful moving forward to make sure that any issue we examine that's prior to September 15 in the case of school boards, or January 1st in the case of municipalities and universities, are still relevant to the day, so that the office is not investigating simply historical matters, but issues which are topical and relevant.
I want to go back to the Twitter thing, because it's an important part of your outreach. You talk about moral suasion. You are very experienced at using Twitter. What have you learned about where the line is between the role of your office and what you tweet out?
Simply that we have to learn from our mistakes. Social media is a very new kind of thing, and people make mistakes. I mean, I recall Minister Tony Clement, who got into a Twitter dispute and direct messaged a 13-year-old that he was a jackass. Thankfully, I've never done that. And the 13-year-old went to his parents, and that was made public. And so, sometimes, so these are cases that are extreme. We haven't run into this, but the use of social media is always a learning experience. And with something new, there are risks, and we learn from our mistakes, and we go forward. Thank you.
Monsieur Morin. Déjà un commissaire à l'intégrité. Alors, comment vous allez aider d'autres municipalités? Comment voyez-vous ça?
Il n'y a qu'un ombudsman qui opère en Ontario, c'est la ville de Toronto qui est obligée de l'avoir, mais toutes les 443 autres municipalités n'ont pas d'ombudsman. Dans ces cas-là, nous agirons comme ressources additionnelles. Et puis, l'autre partie de votre question, c'était?
Comment vous allez aider les municipalités? Parce que Toronto a pas mal tout, mais c'est...
Écoutez, nous, on encourage les municipalités à renforcer leurs ressources pour répondre aux plaintes. Parce qu'on est vraiment, en tant que bureau, un dernier avenue, un recours, le dernier recours. Et puis, on espère que les municipalités vont pouvoir mettre sur pied des mesures pour régler les cas de façon locale et non pas toujours compter sur l'intervention de notre bureau. Merci.